Hi, I'm Miriam Lee, and you're watching my first ever web demonstration for my blog, miriamlee.com. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to make icing roses for decorating cakes and birthday cakes. You'll need a few things if you want to try this at home. The first is icing bags. They come in reusable bags such as this one. This is a vinyl bag. You wash it and reuse it as many times as you like. Or the very handy and convenient disposable plastic bags. These you use once and then throw away. You will need some icing tips. Now tips come in an assortment of sizes and styles. All you need for this will be the rose petal tip and the leaf tip. The rose petal tip is tip number 104 and the leaf tip is number 67. There it is. You'll also need some plastic couplers. This is what attaches the icing tip to the bag. Comes in two pieces, a threaded piece and then the coupler piece which screws on at the end. And of course, you will need some icing. I've mixed already some nice hot pink icing for the rose petals and some green icing for the leaf. Nice green. Both of these were colored with a gel food coloring. I used a Wilton decorating buttercream icing. This comes pre-mixed in a canister just like this one. It's not my favorite for eating. It's very sugary, but it has a nice thick consistency, so it's great for practicing. And I got this at Michael's. All the craft supply and baking supply stores will have it. Last but not least, you will need a very important tool. This is called a flower nail. It looks like a nail. It has this nice flat surface. You're going to be piping the rose directly onto this flat surface. You're going to be rotating this thing between your fingers as you work. I'll show you how it's done in just a moment. So the first thing you want to do is prepare your icing bag. I have my disposable bag here. I'm going to have to clip a little piece off the end and take the threaded plastic piece and just move it down into the end of the bag. Then I'm going to take my flower tip, rose petal tip. This sits into the plastic coupler, and then the whole thing screws on to the end of the bag, nice and tight so your icing doesn't ooze around the end. And then I'm going to fold this bag over. Now, working with icing can be very messy. It's very sticky, very sugary. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to use my left hand, because I'm right-handed, I'm going to use my left hand to form the bag, and then I'm going to use my offset spatula, which is here, and I'm going to use an offset spatula to transfer the colored icing from my icing bowl into this bag. I'm going to use my finger and my thumb as an edge against which I scrape the offset spatula, and we're going to try to keep things neat and tidy as we work. So I just take a little icing on the end of the spatula, and I just sort of shove it into that opening. Scraping as I go. I don't need a whole lot. I'm just going to do one icing one rose right now. So once I've got some icing in that opening between my thumb and my forefinger, I'm just going to very carefully fold the icing bag up. Now the goal is to get all the icing to work itself down toward the tip, not up and out the other end. So with my fingers, I'm just going to work the icing into the end of the bag. Now I'm going to twist the bag around a couple times. This will keep the icing from going out the wrong direction. And I'm going to squeeze it shut with my thumb and my forefinger of my right hand. Again, I'm right-handed. And now I've got the icing bag sitting in the palm of my hand. I'm going to use the pressure from my fingers against my palm to squeeze the icing out the tip. And I'm going to hold the flower nail in my left hand. I've got the flower tip, the fat end, resting almost on the surface of the flower nail to begin. And I'm going to start by piping just a little sort of upside down cone shape, and this becomes the base onto which I'm going to be piping my petals. So I'm going to build it up a little higher. Sometimes I do 2 or 3 of these. This gives my flower some height. So at this point I'm going to start piping the inner layer of petals. I usually do 3. So now I'm going to add another motion. I was twisting with my left hand, squeezing with my right. Now I'm also with my right going to be moving the petal tip up and down in an arc shape while I'm twisting with my left hand. So focus. Ready? We twist and up and then down. And again. And again. Doesn't look like a flower yet. We'll do the next layer of petals. Starting from the center of one of the first 3 petals, roughly, I'm going to repeat the motion. And I usually do 4 on this layer. It's starting to look somewhat like a flower. I'm going to keep going. My petals are getting bigger and broader with each layer, and I do 5 petals on the outside. So there you have a rose. It's looking pretty much like a rose. I'm impressed. So here comes the tricky part. We have to transfer the rose from the flower nail onto, well, if I were decorating a cake, I'd be transferring it to the cake. In this case, I'm just going to transfer it to this plain white ceramic surface so that I can show you how to pipe the leaves. So with a little bit of a swift motion here, I just scoop the flower onto a knife, and with a second knife, any old knife, I'm using a butter knife and a paring knife, I'm going to just gently transfer it onto my surface. So now for the leaves, I've already prepared a bag here with a little bit of green icing. Now the leaf tip is already on this bag. The strategy for the leaves is to start with a firm pressure, which is going to force quite a bit of icing out through the tip, and then to taper it off as I move my hand away from the rose. So I'm going to hold this up so you can see what I'm doing. I put the tip of the icing tip right against the rose, and I give it a good squeeze, and I'm just pulling the bag away. There you have it, your finished rose with a leaf. You could pipe this directly onto the cake, or you could also pipe a number of these roses onto parchment paper on a baking sheet and put them in the refrigerator. I've done that before. I've piped hundreds and hundreds of roses at a time, placed them in the refrigerator. You can store them for up to a couple weeks, cover them lightly with plastic wrap once they're hardened, and then you have roses for a wedding cake or any other cake you're looking to decorate. Thank you very much.